All right, hey everyone. Welcome to our last workshop of the year. Super exciting. This one is pretty special to me. This is my teammate from college, so I'm really excited to have her here. This is Jacqueline Barochi. She is, like I said, one of my teammates from college. So, and she's been in HR for over 5 years. So she has a ton of expertise to give you guys and just help you with, okay, when I get that first job, what the heck do I do with all these forms? So I will let Jackie take it away. And if you have any questions, just hold those till the end and she'll leave some time for questions at the end.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shay. And thank you, Micah, for having me. Thank you, Gardner Webb, for asking me to be a part of this workshop. I have actually never done an HR workshop before. I've been in plenty of new hire orientations, so working with young professionals, new professionals to our organization and talking through this, but this is super fun. I'll share some tidbits about me in a couple of moments, but education is near and dear to my heart. So I feel very honored and blessed to speak with you guys today because this stuff is important. And it's things that I wish I would have known. And Shay and I's university probably had something like this, but I probably wasn't in the headspace to attend anything. So I'm super excited to have you guys here with us today. I love to know who I'm talking to. So I would just love for all 6 of you guys that are on the call, if you can just say hi, and I would love to know what year in school you're in. So we can start with Callie.
Hi, I'm Callie. I am a senior English major and a history minor.
Nice. Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm sorry, at work currently, so my video is not on, but I am in grad school, my 3rd year, and I'm doing clinical mental health counseling.
Nice. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a senior BSN student.
Nice. Thank you for coming. Hannah.
Hannah's at work with me currently too, and she just stepped out to go to the restroom.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
But she is a junior and she is an education major.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Lisa.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Spikes, and I am in the organizational leadership program. I am a senior.
Awesome. And last but not least, Heidi.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am in the graduate program of organizational leadership. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. And if I can just get a thumbs up that you can see it. Okay, thanks, Callie. Awesome. So today's workshop is all around HR 101, basics for entering into the workforce. And I think Lisa has a question. Her hand was up.
No, ma'am. I was trying to do like a thumbs up, but I had it wrong. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. I'm glad you can see my screen. So yes, today we're going to go through just some high-level basics around what you can expect when entering the workforce. Again, this is information that I wish I soaked up in college. So thank you all for joining. This is definitely going to help you to get ahead of the curve once you guys start your new jobs. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about myself. So I'm actually from Charlotte, North Carolina, born and raised. I'm currently living in Charlotte, but I've detoured through the country throughout my 32 years of life. So after I graduated high school, I moved to Iowa, a little small town called Ames, and that is where I attended Iowa State University. And I was on the gymnastics team with Shay Mattingly, so your personal and professional development director. We have been close friends for about 12 years now. So super, super thankful for her asking me to come and talk to you guys. At Iowa State, I got a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies. And then after I left Iowa, I came back to North Carolina for a little bit of time, and I was a gymnastics coach. And from there, I went and got my master's at Queen's University of Charlotte. And I got my Master of Arts in Communications as well. So I always knew that HR was somewhere in my realm, just because I enjoy the personal development. I enjoy watching people grow. I think that's just the athlete in me, wanting to push myself to do more and do better. And so I was really thinking, okay, after I get my master's, I'm going to break out into the HR space. And that's when I moved to Denver, Colorado, and started working for the current organization that I'm with, Business Solver, which I'll talk about in a few moments. And then about 3.5 years ago, I took on the next pillar of my educational life and started on my journey to becoming a doctor of education and organizational leadership. And so I know Heidi and Lisa are currently getting their degrees in organizational leadership, and I hope you guys are enjoying it just as much as I am. My career aspiration is to become a chief human resource officer at some point in my career. And so I'm super excited to just share the knowledge that I've had while working at my current organization called Business Solver. So currently, I am a senior HR business partner, and really what that means is I'm a liaison between our senior leadership and their department. And so I help from a strategic standpoint to make sure the processes, the objectives that senior leaders are putting in place, the goals that senior leaders are putting in place for their departments really align with where our organization is going. And so that is kind of high level what I do. Inside of that, I work on a lot of professional development as well as career growth opportunities. So I work directly with employees on a day-to-day basis. I work with leaders. I'm the employee relations girl. So any issues that may be going on, I usually work directly with the leader in that employee. And then also when it comes to career pathing, I step in and help to create opportunities, help to create that vision of where you want to be in 2 to 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years, and how to get there. So for me, I love watching others grow. I love seeing them work in their passion. And so the HR space has been a great field for me to dive into. Outside of that, I am newly married. Well, I still say newly married. It's been 1.5 years since I married my husband, Devin, who we met at Iowa State. We just bought a house right before the pandemic. So we were super blessed to be able to do all of that before the madness and craziness happened last year. And then in my spare time, I love to relax. I love to read. I am a shopper. So I love to do those things. So I wanted to share just a little bit about me and kind of how I got my career started in HR. Okay, so our agenda for today, we're going to talk about what's this workshop really about. And then I also want to go through some key forms that you guys will have to complete once you move into your new employer. So those forms would be the I-9, the W-4s, the W-2s. I'm sure you guys already know kind of what those mean, but we'll talk a little bit more in depth of the why for those forms and how to complete them. Then we'll also dive into one of my favorites, which is healthcare benefits and terminology that you're going to hear as you guys start enrolling into benefits with your new employer. And last but not least, retirement, which I know it seems like forever away, but we'll talk about the importance of making sure that we're enrolling into 401ks as soon as possible. And even if it's not, a huge percentage of your money you're putting away, just starting out with some is better than none. So I definitely want to make sure that we touch on that as well. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A if you guys have any follow-up questions to our presentation. Does that sound good? Okay, awesome. So really this workshop is about you guys. It's about making sure that you guys have the tools that you need and any questions that you have answered before moving into the professional workspace. So the I-9 form, I like to talk about this first because this is one of the first forms that you will have to complete as soon as you sign that offer letter with your employer. So all employers have an obligation to verify the identity and employment authorization of individuals hired for employment in the United States. So all U.S. employers must properly complete the I-9 form for each individual they hire for employment. And this includes citizens and non-citizens. So the I-9 form is a requirement actually by the Immigration Reform Act, and this process is really to verify, to make sure that whoever is joining the organization can work legally within the United States. So organizations that do not comply with this process will receive a fine or serious legal complications. Employees who are not able to successfully show proof of I-9 verification cannot be lawfully employed. So I do have a story. Last year, we actually onboarded about 200 temporary employees into the organization. So you can imagine trying to complete the I-9 process within a 1 month span with 200 people and making sure we got all documentation in and verified on time was madness. But just the idea around, making sure that we've got legit people who can work in the organization is important. We want to make sure that we're not being audited or fined. So when you guys receive these forms from your employer, it's important that you guys get on it right away, get it completed. From someone who's on the other side of the table, it's important to make sure we get it in time because your job could be in jeopardy. So typically the I-9 documentation must be received within 3 days of employment. And typically with most organizations, if we don't receive your documentation within those 3 business days, you may be terminated from employment. And I know it's like, oh my gosh, it's not fair, but we have to make sure that we're staying in compliance with what the government says, and those fines are high, and we just don't want to be on that list. So when you do hear your employer say, get it into me within 72 business hours, please make sure that you're doing that. In my tenure as an HR professional, I actually have had to terminate an employee because they didn't show proper proof or they didn't submit the documents within that 3-day window. So that was super sad to do, but we did provide a lot of guidance around what to send and when to send and how long they had to send. So once you guys complete this form and send in your verification, which we'll talk about the documents that you may be asked to submit in a moment, you'll then go through the E-Verify process. And this happens once the I-9 document has been completed and documents have been received. And the purpose for E-Verify is to confirm the validity of the identity and right to work documents by matching the data provided with databases that are managed by the Social Security Administration and Department of Homeland Security. So it's a process. Once you turn in your documents, it's not over. Then we have to send everything to make sure everything matches. So it does take a quite a bit amount of time. And so this will be one of the first forms that you will have to complete upon starting work. So typically with these forms, it could be very nice and easy. If you've got a passport, then that is the only information that we will need, documentation that we will need to process you and show that you are eligible to work in the United States. Now, I know not everyone has a passport or a passport card. So typically next in line, we would ask for a copy of your driver's license or an ID card followed with your Social Security card. So anything that can really show that you are who you are and this is your date of birth and you're legal to work here in the United States will be just fine. I highlighted the main 3 that I normally see people send in. Sometimes instead of a Social Security card, they'll send in a birth certificate or something, but we just need something solid to show that you are who you say you are. But there's a lot of different documentation that you can use to provide your identity. So how this process typically goes with I-9 is the employee accepts the offer. Maybe that's the week before new hire orientation starts. And then employees complete the section 1 of the I-9 form. And that should be completed no later than the first paid working day. So if your first day of work is Monday, you should have that I-9 form completed no later than Monday. And then you'll go through in the next 3 days, providing those documents for your employer. And so what I would go ahead and say is, before you guys enter the workforce, make sure you've got some proof of verification, because sometimes people come to me and say, oh, it's at my parents' house, they've got to ship it, it's going to take X amount of days. Had they known this ahead of time, they maybe would have been more prepared. So make sure you guys have that handy. And then the employer will complete section 2 of the form no later than the 3rd business day. So that's the process for I-9s. Super easy, but it can get a little bit complicated when you don't have what you need in order to provide proof that you're eligible to work in the US. All right, so the next form I wanted to talk to you guys about was the W-4 form. So for any of you who have already entered the workforce, you know that taxes are taken out of every single paycheck, unfortunately. And so the W-4 form is also known as the Employee Withholding Certificate. And this is a one-page document created by the IRS. It tells your employer how much money to take out of your paycheck to cover federal and state income taxes. And this is another form that you are going to receive upon being newly employed. So again, it's going to be one of those first documents you're going to have to complete. And one thing to remember with your W-4 form is, if something changes, let's say you get a promotion or you get married or you have a baby, you may want to adjust your W-4 form to match those changes. Because remember, this form tells your employer what to take out of your paycheck when it comes to federal and state income taxes. So leaving it the same and not updating it as those life changes happens could result in too much money being withheld each pay period, or worse, too little money being withheld, resulting in a large tax bill come tax season, which we all don't want. So the beauty of the W-4 form is that your employer handles withdrawing and paying your taxes for you based on your allowances. And if you have any unearned income, so let's say interest or dividends, or you receive payment from freelance work, there's a good chance that taxes are not automatically withdrawn from those payments. And in that case, then you're responsible for those taxes due on the amount that goes to the IRS or through the IRS. So if you are doing anything on the side, I am a gymnastics judge, and so I don't complete a W-4 form. So I have to make sure that I submit all the money that I collect from being a gymnastics judge to my tax consultant to make sure that, I pay on those taxes. So Uncle Sam doesn't come after me. So a few key things that I wanted to call out on the W-4 form are that you'll need to complete your marital status. That will be important. And I believe that that is in section 3 of the W-4 form, which I will show you guys on the next slide. But I also wanted to talk about allowances. Allowances are claimed on your W-4 form. So when you start a new job, for instance, each allowance you claim reduces the amount of your income that is withheld for taxes. So the point of the W-4 form is to help your employer estimate how much tax you'll owe on the wages they pay you, so that they can withhold the proper amount from your paychecks. So typically those allowances could be 0 or 1, just depending on what you want withheld. So this is a copy of a recent W-4 form. And so where you'll update your allowances are in line 5, which is highlighted. And typically people are going to put a 0 or a 1, or maybe they may add exempt into line 7, which we'll talk about in a few moments. So this is an actual image from a real W-4 form. And so if you do place a 0 in that line 5, you're indicating that you want the most amount of money most amount of tax taken out of your paycheck each pay period. And typically how I equate that is, the more money that you take out for tax during each pay period, the larger your tax refund will be. So some people are more comfortable with, I'd rather you just take it all out as the year goes, and I know that I'll get that money back when it's tax season. If you indicate 1, that means you're wishing to claim 1, so yourself instead. And this means that less tax is taking out each pay period. So this could mean more money is coming into you each pay period than if you were to put a 0, but just know that during tax season, you may, not guaranteed, but you may have to pay the government for taxes that weren't withheld in your paycheck. Some people just rather would have a little bit more each paycheck and then pay later, but it really is up to you. And then the last option is exempt. And so exempt employees can claim exemption if both of these 2 options apply. So in the previous year, the employee had the right to a refund of all federal income tax withheld from their wages because they had no tax liability. And in the current year, the employee expects a refund of all federal income tax withheld because they plan to have no tax liability. And I just want you to know this is all for your federal taxes. So if you do claim exempt, this does not include Social Security or Medicare tax as well as state tax. That may still apply. So how much income results in no tax liability when you think of, am I an individual that maybe should put exempt? So this is based off of 2020 employees' annual salaries. So typically you're going to file exempt if you're single or married filing separately and you make lower than $12,400. If you're the head of household and you make less than $18,650, and then if you're married filing jointly or you're qualifying widow or widower, and you make less than $24,800. And examples of tax exempt employees include students or other employees who work part-time or seasonally, because typically if you're working part-time or seasonally, you're not making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. So taxes will kill you if those federal taxes are taking out of your paycheck. You're bringing home little to none. And I thought I saw a hand, or Shay, are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think one of the students had to leave due to work. So she was just saying, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't get to the end and there was a question. Okay, perfect. So W-4 form, again, one of those first documents that you are going to have to complete. It is important. It has to do with taxes and the amount of money that will be coming out of each paycheck. So then we'll move to the W-2 form. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with W-2 as well. So they may sound familiar, but they do have separate functions when it comes to an employee's tax situation. So with the W-2 form, which is also known as the wage and tax statement, it's given to you by your employer at the end of each year prior to filing your tax return. So that includes total wages earned, federal and state taxes withheld, and contributions to Social Security and Medicare for the time you worked for that employer during the calendar year. Employers are required to send a W-2 form to each employee by January 31st of the new year. They also must submit a copy of the Social Security Administration form as well, or send it to the Social Security Administration. And this information listed on the form is used to complete your tax return, and it must be submitted to the IRS. So if you're wondering where your W-2 is and you haven't heard anything, please make sure you're reaching out to your HR department, your payroll department. They are responsible for making sure they get that to you in a timely manner, since we have a timeline to submit our taxes. Another thing I was going to say about W-2s is now that we're moving into a world of all technology, a lot of W-2s are now sent electronically. I know I personally get mine electronically, and it's located in the ADP HRIS system that my organization uses, and it's available to me throughout the year. So if I need to go back and pull it in June or whatnot, I have it. I don't have to go searching through piles of paper within my house. So I know a lot of organizations have shifted to that. So if you don't see it in the mail, more than likely it's just because they are they're sending it to you electronically through your HRIS system. So a bit of difference between the two. W-4 comes first. W-2 is what's given to you after each calendar year. All right. Healthcare benefit basics. So one thing that I always like to stress to people going into the business world or just the working world period that are new to it, it's important to make sure that you read through your benefits packages. Benefits are so important. You don't think about how important benefits are until something tragic happens and you're like, oh, I wish I would have had this, or I wish I would have invested in that. And also it's important to look at your benefits packages to see how much your employer is investing in making sure you've got the right benefits, that you've got good benefits, that you've got good voluntary benefits. One thing that I feel people sometimes forget is they may not like the dollar amount that's being offered to them from a compensation standpoint, but they don't see how much money the employer is actually contributing from a benefits standpoint. We include benefits in our whole total rewards package. So not only are you're getting your comp, but you're getting a high dollar benefits package just so that you and your family can be protected, so that you're not having to pay, out of your pocket for benefits. So I would just encourage you guys to look at your company's benefits package, and see really what the investment that they're making and making sure you and your family have what you need from a health standpoint, because they do go hand in hand. And I didn't really realize that until I started working in HR and started to see, man, my organization is paying $7,000 on top of what they're currently paying me from a compensation standpoint. That's a lot. So, it's just good to make sure that you check those benefits out. Also, joining the business and work field, I did not know much about insurance. When I first started working, I was still under my parents' insurance, and all I knew about insurance is I've got this little card if I get sick and I need to go to the doctor, and I just show it and my mom or dad pays it. So it was a huge reality check. But this was one of the key things with working at Business Solver that I learned. And Business Solver is actually a benefits administration technology company. And so basically we build our technology so that other organizations can utilize it to enroll into their benefits. So you're going to hear things like annual enrollment, and that's the time of year where you enroll into your health and your life benefits for the new plan year. Our organization, Business Solver, we actually create the technology where you log into the computer and you enroll. Or if you have a life event where you need to add a dependent to coverage, our platform also helps with that. We also help with offboarding when you leave your organization and maybe you're going on to COBRA benefits. We administer that as well. So we do a lot with the insurance field, and I'm so grateful that I started in this field, because if there's one thing that I can take away from my job is that I'm able to share with my friends and family the importance of benefits, how they work, and what's a good plan and what's maybe not a good plan. So some of the terminology that I pulled out that I had no clue about when entering the workspace were some of the ones that are listed on the screen. So a premium. So the premium is the price that you pay for your insurance policies. So basically you've got to pay insurance every single paycheck just to have insurance. So you've got to pay the insurance carrier just to have insurance. And so premiums will differ depending on what plan you choose. But typically that does come out every payroll frequency. A deductible. A deductible is the cumulative amount that you must pay.
There, because I know it's.
oops, I don't think someone was on mute, but it's the cumulative amount that you must pay annually before benefits will be paid by the insurance company. So let's say the insurance policy indicates that there is a $250 deductible. The insurance company pays as agreed after you've paid the first $250. So typically that deductible is what you're going to pay out of pocket before insurance says, okay, I'm going to pay 80% of your insurance bills moving forward and you'll pay 20%, or I'm going to pay 50 and you'll pay 50. Next, copays, which are typically with PPO plans. This is a set or fixed dollar amount that you're required to pay each time a particular medical service is used. For some of you guys that maybe have gone to the doctor and they say, hey, we're going to collect your copay. It's going to be $10 or $20 or $15. That's money that's going towards that deductible. And so typically you'll see copays with PPO plans, EPO plans, HMO plans, but not high deductible plans. And then there's coinsurance, and this is the amount, which is typically a percentage that you are obligated to pay for the covered medical services after you've satisfied any copayment or deductible required by your health insurance plan. So your continuous, I like to go through the line just to spell everything out. So you're paying your premiums each paycheck. And then let's say you go to the doctor and you got a $200 deductible. You go and the doctor's visit is $250. You're for sure going to pay $200 out of your pocket because that's the deductible. That's what you have to pay first before insurance says we'll help you with anything. And then based off of what your coinsurance is, maybe the insurance carrier says we're going to pay 80%, you pay 20%. That $50 left that you have on your bill will be split 80-20. Depending if that's the percentage that is agreed upon with your carrier. Maybe it's 70-30, but anything after you've paid that $200 deductible, insurance will then go in and co-insurance will then start working together. So deductibles can be, I've seen deductibles as low as $500. I've seen deductibles as high as $2,500. So it just all depends on the plan and your needs. And then there's an out-of-pocket maximum. So this is the total you pay out of your pocket for a policy each year. And so these costs include the deductible, the coinsurance, and the amounts considered by the insurance company, typically the usual and customary charges. So out-of-pocket max is anything out of your pocket, anything that out of insurance pocket that has met that certain dollar amount. Insurance will then pay 100% of your benefits. So let's say your out-of-pocket max is $10,000. You had a baby in that year. We already know that babies cost over $10,000 with the hospital bill and everything. You paid your deductible, you paid, insurance is paid a lot. You've paid more based off of your coinsurance, and any money directed toward your medical bills hit $10,000 for that year. Anything else that happens to you or any other appointment you may need to go to, you will not have to pay anything out of pocket because you've hit your out-of-pocket maximum, meaning insurance will then take 100% responsibility for any other medical bill that you may rack up during that year. So out-of-pocket maximums, just like everything else, can vary. I've seen 10,000, I've seen 15,000, I've seen 7,000. And then I also wanted to point out the differences between a high deductible and a preferred provider insurance plans. I see more organizations moving toward high deductible plans. Honestly and candidly, high deductible plans are cheaper. So you're not having to pay, $150 each paycheck for an insurance plan. And typically you see high deductible plans being selected by younger individuals who maybe don't have medications that they have to take on a daily basis, or are, for the most part, 99% healthy throughout the year, except for that 1% or that one cold that they may get. So typically you'll see your healthier individuals and you'll see your younger individuals get this plan. It's cheaper, they don't have to pay too much about it. What does come with it is there is a higher deductible, just like the name says. So you typically will have to pay between $1,000 and $2,500 before insurance will help you pay. But for these individuals, it's like they're more than happy to run the risk because they're probably not going to have to see a doctor in that year. They're pretty healthy. Individuals that we see that maybe take the PPO plan, they typically are ones that need to go to the doctor pretty regularly, or they have medications that they take on a consistent basis. And so for them, the thought of paying $2,500 up front before insurance kicks in is not okay for them, which is totally understandable. So the PPO plan will probably be a little bit more expensive from your paycheck, but you'll probably have a lower deductible. Your deductible may be between $200 and $500. So it won't cost you as much for insurance to kick in and start contributing to that co-insurance. And you'll typically have the co-pays. So when you go into the doctor, you'll only pay that $10 to $20 copay. And then voluntary benefits, those are also important as well. So this includes life insurance, this includes accident insurance, accidental death and dismemberment insurance, pet insurance, critical illness insurance. All of those things are good. And I kind of have the superstition when I first started working, I got the critical illness, I got the accident insurance, I got all the life insurance, just because I'm super superstitious about it. And I'm like, now that I've gotten it, if I take it off, because I've never used any of it. So I'm like, if I take it off of my plan, something bad is going to happen. I wish I would have had that accident insurance or that critical illness insurance. But I definitely encourage you guys to take a look at those benefits that your employers are offering. They really do help, and a lot of them have cash benefits. So I know with critical illness, if you're in the hospital overnight, I believe it's after a couple of days that you're in the hospital, or after one day you're in the hospital, they pay you a cash benefit for you being in the hospital. And that cash benefit is to help you pay for any offset expenses that you may have while you're in the hospital. So a lot of these benefits are there to help you financially if something tragic were to happen to you or your dependents. So I'm very passionate about benefits because I think they're very important. And I think, a lot of people don't know much about them. They can be expensive, but they definitely are worth it if something were to happen. And then last but not least, retirement. And I know it's probably hard for you guys to think about, but life moves very fast and we will all be at that point at some time in our life. But a 401k is an employer-sponsored retirement account. It allows an employee to dedicate a percentage of their pre-tax salary to a retirement account. And so knowing how to build your 401k retirement plan, devising investment strategies, and making the most of your plan all help to financially secure your path to retirement. So, during economic difficulties, you may be tempted to tap into your 401k funds, but most often, you're much better off financially if you just leave the funds alone. I know sometimes you can go back and, in 10 years, you may say, oh, I've got this amount of money in my 401k. I need to buy a house. Try not to go and tap into that money. That money is for you. You've worked hard for it so that you can relax and go retire and just live retirement life to the fullest. So typically, I believe it's before 59 and a half. If you do tap into that money, you are fined for it. So, and it's a pretty substantial fine, I guess, for taking out your 401k money early. Some people have to, but your 401k vendor will probably always strongly suggest that you not, or lower your percentage, maybe for a period of time if you need those extra funds. So you've got a couple of different types of 401ks. You've got a traditional 401k. This is the most common type of 401k. This means that your contributions are made pre-tax, and your contributions earnings grow through tax deferment. So you'll be taxed on contributions in retirement. So When I say pre-tax, before your taxes are taken out of your paycheck, your 401k money is taken away, which means that you're going to be taxed at a lower dollar amount because your compensation will look lower to the IRS. So any money that you're putting towards your 401k is not getting taxed. Now, once you get to the point where you can start getting your 401k, once you're retired, you will be taxed on those dollars that do come out. But along the way, if you're putting $500, you're actually putting your true $500 away. A Roth 401k. So about half of employers who offer this 401k option. And this means that your contributions are made after taxes, but distributions in retirement are not taxed as income. So it's a little bit different from the traditional, as you know, you're taxed after, sorry, you are taxed after the IRS taxes you. I'm so sorry. And then your 401k funds. So those pre-tax dollars, again, that means that your contributions are taken from your paycheck before your taxes are deducted. So, you know, I personally do the traditional 401k just because, you know, I'll worry about the taxes later. I would rather have the $100 or $200, those full dollar amounts going towards my 401k now than later. And it's important for you guys to start investing in your retirement as early as possible. I know I was looking at some research, and 401k carriers, they do advise that you put 10% of your paycheck into your 401k. That's a lot of money. And I, you know, tell people, do what you can. Don't break the bank trying to put money into your 401k. As you grow in your career, money will come. So even if you start off with like 1%, that's better than none. And so as you continue to contribute and you get more money, you can then up your percentage. You can always increase your 401k at any point in time, or you can decrease it at any point in time. Also, your employer more than likely is going to match. So your employer may have a 3% match or a 5% match or a 7% match, just depending on those types of plans. So for example, let's say you make $100,000 a year and your employer offers a 401k matching of 50% up to the first 6% you elect to contribute. If you contribute 6% of your annual earnings, which is $6,000, your employer would contribute an additional 50% of that amount. So that's $3,000 free dollars that go into your 401k. So again, it's important for you guys to know what your employer is contributing when it comes to your 401k. If they've got a great match plan, you know, that is an incentive for you to put more, because the more you put, the higher their match is going to be for you. And then you'll hear something called fully vested. And so when you're fully vested, this is when you become the employer. Matching funds then belong to you. So after a certain amount of years being on your job, you know, your employer may say, at 3 years after we've contributed to your 401k and you've had an active 401k, any money that we've contributed towards it is truly yours. And if you were to leave the job before, let's say, the 3 years, and it's been 2 years and it's 60% vested, that means you could only take that 60%. So it's also smart, if you are putting money into your 401k, to know at that limit where you can be invested before you think about maybe leaving that organization. Because remember, what your employer is giving you are free dollars. And so you want to make sure that you get as much of that as possible. So I believe we are almost at time. So I wanted to give you guys a couple of minutes to maybe ask me some questions if you had anything, or if anything I said was a little unclear.
I did have a question for about I think it's W4.
Yeah.
I found out that, because I work for the school system,
Mhm.
and we get paid once a month. So I was carrying one dependent,
Mhm.
and I had to pay back a whole lot of taxes last year, which we don't even make a lot of money. But so I went back in and added to take out an extra $20 because they said the human resources said they can't tell us how to take out our monies or nothing. But do you think that's a good decision to take out extra money to be able to cover anything? Because I don't know how it's set up as far as the school, because we don't make a whole lot of money a
Mhm.
month, but they don't take out a lot of taxes.
So again, your HR is right. Like we shouldn't tell you what to do, but I guess when you say taking out an additional $20, how are you planning to take an additional 20? Because typically with your W4, you're just claiming, if it's 0 or if it's 1, based off of your dependents. So
Yes. Well, the only reason I decided to take out the extra 20 just because they wasn't taking out any taxes.
oh, okay. Yeah.
So I didn't know how to really fill out the form, and they can't really coach you on how to fill it out because I guess because of the conflict that they could get in trouble if they tell us how to fill it out.
Yes, and they are very, very right. So my advice to you is to connect with your tax professional on that. Just because I can't speak or say, what is best for you and your family.
Yes.
Your tax professional definitely would. So I would definitely reach out to them.
Okay. And that might be because I have a small business and I file a Schedule C with that. So, but I have been taking a loss with it, things, because I only work in it part-time and I don't generate a lot of cash to that anymore. But I don't know if but that didn't have anything to do with the school. The school just wasn't taking out any taxes. And she did tell me that I need to make sure they taking out some taxes.
Yep, and your tax professional would be able to determine like how much taxes you would need to maybe pay back if the school system wasn't taking it out of your paycheck throughout the year.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
thank you.
Of course.
Actually, Jack, that was going to be my question is, like, if you're a new professional and you have questions, and since HR really isn't supposed to help you answer, who do people go to? Like, I know I call my mom.
Yeah.
So like, if you don't have someone to call, like, who should the students reach out to, or who should they ask for help? Like, are there certain websites or, anything you recommend for students to get information?
Yeah, no, so I think if you want to just get broad information on terms that we've talked about today, how taxes work, you can always go to the IRS government website and read on that. But I always say when it comes to filling out those forms, understanding what tax is being withheld, why, how to make sure that, you're still able to have your livelihood and still be able to pay your taxes, always go to a tax professional. And maybe, in your instance, Jay, your mom would go to whoever does her taxes, those types of things. But I would always make sure you're going to a professional, because they're the ones that are going to be able to tell you. You don't want to get to the point where it's tax season and you didn't know, and you should have been all year, and then now you're paying this huge bill. So they can definitely help shave down some of those costs, or maybe, help move things around. Great question.
Hi, this is Heidi.
Hi.
Jacqueline, thank you so much. I have been taking notes and I greatly appreciate this.
Sure.
My question is about the PPO versus the high deductible.
Yes.
So 4 years ago, when I began working at my current organization, the only option was for high deductible.
Mm-hmm.
And this was new to me. And I was like, okay. Well, after my first 1 or 2 doctor's appointments, I was scared to sneeze because $400 to say hello, how you doing? Yeah, So health savings became my friend.
Yes.
But my question is there a threshold or is there like, does it depend on the number of employees or just how does an organization provide its employees with options? You know, like, is it a law to say like, hey, you might need to consider PPOs for your employees because high deductible is the only option that this organization has?
You know, it's different from every organization. I would say that size does matter. Revenue coming into the organization matters as well because the bills that come in monthly from insurance carrier to organizations can be millions of dollars. And so really it's about how much the organization can afford to spend on benefits. And so high deductible plans are typically not saying cheap, but they're lower priced than PPOs. And so if you're seeing employers that are shifting to a high deductible plan, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to pay, but there are health savings accounts, which are awesome to have, where you can save those pre-tax dollars to help pay towards those deductibles. But honestly, it comes down to cost. If, you know, an employer can't afford to have 5 different types of insurance plans because of how expensive it is, you know, they may have to cut somewhere. But that's just what I've seen from my perspective around employers choosing to have a high deductible versus a PPO plan. And a lot of older people or people that go to the doctor more frequently aren't fans of high deductibles because, like I said, you know, they're like, what? I have to pay $1,000 out of my pocket first before insurance will help me. You know, but there are pluses and minuses to all of the plans. You just kind of have to look at it and see how it works for your situation and your life. But I would say mostly it's cost.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, I don't know if anyone else has any more questions, but again, thank you. This was awesome. This was a great first workshop I've ever done. So thank you, Shay and Micah and Gardner Webb for having me. Thank you guys for attending today. I hope that everyone was able to take, you know, just even if it's one piece of information away, you know, that's great. And then if you have any other questions, Shay knows how to reach out to me. So I'm more than happy to assist or answer any questions you may have.
Jackie, this was great today. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm so glad that Shay knew you and could pull your expertise into this because we needed it.
Yeah, no, awesome. I'm happy to help anytime. So, you know, I'm a resource if you guys need me for anything else.
Well,
And
thanks.
for those still